Okay, that was fun. I just went through the whole process and realized that my screen recording was not working. So I've got some good practice in now. Let's see how this goes. What I'd like to do today is show you how I make an archival preservation TIFF file of a 5x7 glass plate. And we'll just zoom out here. Okay, so a couple things. I'm using Silverfast AI scanning software with an Epson Expression 10,000 XL scanner. I made the choice to use the Epson 10,000 versus the V700, which I think is a little bit sharper and I get a better file from, but I was having problems with the V700 because the scanning head is in the lid, which means the emulsion would have to be facing up. And when I did that, the glass of the base on the glass of the scanner was causing Newton ring interference, and so I was getting kind of this swirly pattern in the open shadows that was quite obvious. So long story short, I switched to a different scanner. This scanner allows the emulsion to be down, which isn't best because you have some possibility of damaging the emulsions. You have to be very careful not to slide it, make sure there's no grit or foreign material on the glass. And then the image will need to be reversed as well. So let's do a pre-scan on Silverfast, which will give us our outlay here. And then we can take the marquee and we'll select our plate. And the nice thing about the scanner, it's a tabloid size, so I could line up maybe 4 different plates on here at one time. So what I want to first do is I want to find out where my brightest highlight is and where my deepest shadow is. And since this is a negative, it will be reversed as far as those tonal qualities. Let's just bring up, we have a little button here with a white and a black mark, which tells us where the brightest highlight is by shift clicking. And I had a couple other samples here. I'm just going to delete this and do it again. So right now I don't know, well, let's zoom in here, get a closer up view. And what we'll do is find where our highlight is, which will be the deepest shadow in the inverted positive. So this is locating our shadows by shift clicking. And where did it show up? Oh, there we go. Right here is our shadow and our highlight. We'll shift click, and that is over here. Now, one important thing, you'll see I moved the marquee into the image area. This will not be the scanning area. We want to include all of the edge of the plate. But if I had the marquee way out here, the shadow would pick up this clear area with no film as our deepest shadow. Same thing if the film was fogged, like if there was a light leak in the film holder, there could be a very dark bleeding of light coming in, and that could throw off where your brightest highlight is. So we want to make sure we get the proper area. Okay, so now we can pull our marquee back out. And if you look up here in the left corner, you'll see it's telling me what the highlight will be, 251, and our shadow is going to be 7. And there are Photoshop values from 0 to 255, 0 being pure black and white being 255 pure white. What we want to do is create a buffer so that we're not going to lose any detail in our shadows. We don't want a clipping in what will be our shadows, and we don't want a clipping in what will be our highlights. So I'm going to back off, and this is opening the histogram through this button here, and now you'll see the value change and what I want to do is bring it down to a value of 15 for my highlight, which our shadow here, which will be our highlight, and 240 for our highlight, which will be our shadow later. This little bit more information here is probably, since I backed down, let's back this. That will be the edge, maybe the clear parts of the film where the emulsion's flaked off. Some of this bright highlight might be up in here, which I'm trying to find an area of the scene that is most useful. And it's okay if this area gets clipped or this area gets clipped. And I think it's better to be safe, so I even make it a little bit beyond the histogram. So now I just backed it up a little bit, 21 and 232. So let's say okay to that. Now, pixel dimension. So I did a little testing, and what I wanted to do was get a large enough scan that I could see the most amount of detail before I'm starting to just resolve the grain of the plate and the original emulsion. So what I came up with was 16,000 pixels on the long dimension and 11,000 or whatever falls on the short dimension. And that's going to be a pretty large file, 343 megabytes. This is scanned in 16-bit grayscale, which will save us some file size. We're not scanning in RGB. I would scan in RGB if I needed to, if there was some staining or some uneven processing. You can adjust those different levels of red, green, and blue to remove any dark staining patches in the negative. That's the only time I found that to be useful, scanning in RGB. So 16-bit grayscale, 16,000 on the long dimension, and this is going to be a long scan, so we'll stop it here in a minute and then open it up in look at it in Bridge and open it in Photoshop and then convert it. One other thing is I also do put it in the autofocus mode, which will focus right on the center of the plate. I have good detail there. I would shut that off on future scans, just because it takes longer to focus and we don't need that. So as long as the plates are all similar width, we should be good to go. Okay, let's hit scan and we'll start it again in Bridge. File name, I'm calling it Kinney Stone Arch 001. There's a few other of the Stone Arch, and I'm saving it into just a test folder right now for using Silverfast.